I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. Being aware of our surroundings, caring and sharing our roadways with vehicles of all sorts, construction sites, and any unexpected surprises is imperative to the health and wellness of all of us. Operating a motor vehicle may seem second nature to many, but when it comes to safety, we should really be ready to act in a moment's notice. Joining me is Brandon Hewitt, attorney and COO of Michigan Auto Law. Welcome back to the show, Brandon.
Thank you so much for having us.
Michigan Auto Law is a law firm unlike any other in the state. It's been practicing for over 50 years. Can you tell us a little bit about the firm and what makes it unique?
Yeah, so I'm a little biased. So this is the only place I've ever practiced. So, forgive me there, but I've been there for about 20 years. And what's so special about it is number one, it's the only thing that we do is automobile accidents, serious car, truck, pedestrians, bicyclists, but it's an automobile accident. So, we're not going to handle your divorce. We're not going to handle your bankruptcy. We're going to be specific to that particular area of law. And that's because we want to do something at our best, right? And not try to do everything, right? A master of everything is a master of none. So, we really kind of deep dived into this area of law, and hopefully we can demonstrate our expertise in it. And, it's such an important thing when you're dealing with, serious injuries, loss of life. You don't want somebody that kind of knows what they're doing. So we take it seriously, and we take, our clients, problems and injuries and lives seriously.
You're talking about accidents. They're obviously scary. I think a lot of us have been in minor accidents or major accidents. But I think like when you're in an accident, you sort of panic and you don't always know what to do. Can you tell us the process?
Yeah, so we've all had friends in accidents too, and it's in the moment you don't know what to do, right? So just some very basic things everybody should do, no matter how bad you think the crash is, no matter if you think you're hurt at the scene or you're not. Just some real basics to cover your bases and just make sure everything is okay in case it turns not to be okay. So number one, call the police every single time. There is no situation where you should not call the police. If the other driver is asking you, please don't call the police, it's okay. I'll just, send it to my insurance company. That's fine, but we're going to call the police, right? You don't see any damage on the vehicles. That's fine. Call the police. It's just important to get that documented, not only for your possible injuries, but you're dealing with the insurance company. They're going to want documentation that this incident happened, what happened, who was involved, also to get the information for the other parties involved. It's just very, very important. You're not doing anything wrong by calling the police to the scene and having them show up and document everything. The other thing next is to obviously call your insurance company, let them know about the incident. Again, calling them, making them aware doesn't mean, excuse me, that you're going to be making an insurance claim. It doesn't mean that your premiums are going to go up. So don't be afraid to do that. So many people are afraid to let their insurance company know, but how I explain to them is like, look, if you flooded your basement, are you going to call your insurance company? Of course you are. If you got in a car accident and you could possibly be hurt, you should call the insurance company and let them know. Um, Also, keep good records. Make sure that everything is well documented. Take photos at the scene of any damages that you might have. Um, Also, call your doctor. If you have any sort of pain or any sort of problem, get into a doctor as soon as possible. It's okay to go to urgent care. It's okay to go to the hospital. Again, the approach that we take is to prepare, hope for the best and prepare for the worst, right? If you end up being totally fine, no harm, no foul, you're going to be okay. Nothing you did to document things and make sure everything is okay is going to be a harm to you. But if you're not okay, what if a month goes by or 2 months go by and you just keep getting worse? Well, whatever you documented early on, whatever you told the insurance company early on and told the police early on is what they're going to look at to see if it's lining up with the problems you're dealing with now. So I always tell people, look, it's much easier to say something got better a month or two later than to bring it up for the first time. So just make sure that, take the safe, easy route, document things, and just make sure everything is well put together for you, just in case something bad happens.
Yeah, that's really great advice because I've been in like some accidents that were really sort of terrifying and then some that were like sort of fender benders. And I will say that I did not call the police when it was just a fender bender. But then in hindsight, I was like, there's a little bit of damage to my car. I should have. And I think it's good advice that like even if it just feels really minor, that it is good to have that record of everything that happened.
I think something inside of us like feels guilty about calling the police or feels bad about making an insurance claim. And that's understandable. That's baked into our society. And, the commercials that we've been, you know, watching for the last 20 years with the insurance industry, they make you feel like you're doing something wrong or, that you're a bad person for calling an attorney. All it is just protecting yourself. And, when people call us, look, we tell them, I hope you don't need us. I hope that, you don't have to hire us because that means you're okay.
Well, we're in the midst right now. Spring is orange cone season. And I think there's obviously laws in place for when workers are present, but I don't think we all really know what we should know when we're entering those construction zones.
So there are legal should do's and there are just safe should do's, right? So the legal should do's are kind of obvious and they're posted all over the place when you enter those zones. So number one, everybody should know that no matter what the speed limit is, as you enter a work zone, it's going to drop down to at least 45 miles an hour. And what you'll probably see is it's probably even lower than that. But at the very least, it's going to be, or at the very most, it'll be 45 miles an hour. So if you're on the expressway, you better drop your speed. You should drop it even more than that just to be extra cautious, but know that 45 is going to be the absolute max you're going to travel, but also look for those posted limits. You should also know that if you're not, if you're exceeding those speeds that are posted, fines are doubled fines and penalties are doubled in work zones. So what was a 2-point ticket? It's now going to be a 4-point ticket. What was
That's a
a
lot of
250
points for one ticket.
exactly. $250 fine is going to be a $500 fine. And then also very, very scary is if you injure or you kill a work zone worker, it is almost mandatory that you're going to go to prison. So it is something that is out there. It's not strict liability, but it is very, very strictly enforced when it comes to injuring workers. So that's, the legal aspects of things as far as just like from a basic safety standpoint, you should just be on extra high alert when you go into a work zone. There are so many unexpected conditions in work zones. Lanes are more narrow. There are workers everywhere, obviously. Lanes change. There's different, the redirecting different routes. Cars are going to be kind of moving in and out. And the number one cause of work zone crashes is inattentiveness. And unfortunately, speed, even though speed should be reduced, but it's really inattentiveness. We see a lot of rear end crashes in work zones. And really, that just comes down to people not paying attention, being a little bit distracted, probably. And so, as you enter that work zone, just know that it is a much, much more dangerous setting than even normal driving is. And so, you should be extra, extra careful going into those places.
I also think it's important to note that like these people are have families, they have loved ones, and they have a dangerous job that has to be done. And it happens every year in Michigan. They have to get out there and do their job. And they don't deserve to like have their lives endangered because people don't want to slow down at a work zone or they're gawking or as we discussed in the past, people being on their phone while they're driving.
Have you ever like had to stop on the shoulder of the expressway? Like how scary that is to be outside of your car.
Hmm.
These people have to work there all day, and then
Yeah.
it's has to be terrifying for them. So it's very, very scary. It's very dangerous. We had over 7,000 work zone crashes in Michigan last year. 17 fatal crashes, 20 people, including two workers, were killed. So it's no joke. It is such a scary thing. And honestly, everybody complains about the roads, and we need to protect the people out there trying to fix them for us. So just be extra careful. Don't be in a rush.
I think a lot of times we think of like the winter months as being a hard time to drive because of weather circumstances, but there's a lot of other obstacles when the spring and summer come. And during those warm months, you're also getting people out on motorcycles. And can you tell us why it's so important to be extra cautious when you're sharing the road with motorcycles? And I think that all of us have probably known somebody that has had a fatality on a motorcycle because of someone not being cautious while they're driving.
Yeah, so a couple things, right? So first of all, people are surprised when I tell them our busiest time of the year, and honestly, the saddest time of the year is the summertime. And it's not because there's more crashes. There's actually probably more crashes in the wintertime because of the roads, but people are driving slower, right? You're a little bit
Hmm.
more cautious. Summertime, people are moving, they're excited to go to the beach, they're excited to go up to their cabin. You just have that kind of extra adrenaline, and people are just driving faster and
Windows
fast.
down, music up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Faster crashes are going to mean more serious injuries, and there are no more serious injuries than what we see with motorcyclists. It's terribly sad. If you are lucky enough to survive a crash as a motorcyclist, you probably have life-changing, devastating injuries, and that's just easy to understand because you're not protected by anything. You're on a very dangerous machine, and there's nothing surrounding you to even remotely protect you. So yeah, we are very big advocates for motorcyclists and motorcycle safety, and not just tips for the motorcycle drivers. It's a lot of times the tips for the automobile drivers because you don't see them, you're not paying attention, they come up on you quickly. I think we've all probably been passed by a motorcycle like in between our lanes, and so you just have to be extra extra aware. So yes, we have tips for motorcyclists. Number one, I know it's not popular, but wear a helmet. You don't have to anymore. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
I
Um,
hated that Michigan changed that law, honestly. I wish that law would have stayed.
you know what? It was done, I think, for tourist reasons, and commercial purposes. And you know what? Motorcycles love it. They want to feel that freedom of not wearing a helmet. From a safety perspective, please wear a helmet. They reduce the possibilities of fatalities and brain injuries by 30-40%, which is a lot, right? If you're under the age of 21, you have to wear a helmet. So just know that. And in order to wear a helmet, you have to have a valid endorsement for a motorcycle driver on your driver's license. But we just think it's good practice, period. Number two, as a motorcyclist, understand that you are more vulnerable to being hit and to, bad injuries. So drive carefully, drive defensively. There is a bias against motorcyclists out there that, everybody just thinks that they drive super fast and they're the cause of the problems. But to be honest, most of the time, these crashes are not the motorcyclist's fault. It is somebody else's fault. So, it's that old thing that our parents always told us, just drive defensively. It couldn't apply more than to motorcyclists.
Hmm.
Just understand people don't see you. And it's harder for motor vehicle drivers to appreciate the speed at which motorcycles are coming at them. Even if they're not speeding, it's deceptive when you see a motorcyclist coming. You can't really tell how fast they're going. So just kind of be aware of that. Intersections, of course, are very, very dangerous spots, especially for motorcyclists. So be extra cautious when you're entering an intersection. Um, always ride with your lights on. Again, maybe not something that's terribly popular or common. I know that most motor vehicles have automatic headlights, but we encourage everybody to ride with your headlights on all the time. You see truck drivers, semi trucks doing it. That's not by coincidence. It's because they know that it's safer to drive with your headlights on, even if it's a normal, just kind of in the daytime. And that's the other thing is that a lot of crashes, really terrible crashes, happen in the daytime, which is probably not what most people think. But again, it's probably faster speeds, not expecting bad things to happen. And then as far as motor vehicle drivers, again, check your blind spots when you're changing lanes, especially in the expressway. You can't necessarily hear the motorcycle coming up behind you. They're you're not expecting them to be there. Just make sure you are extra careful when you change lanes on the expressway. Just know that they're out there. It's summertime. They're going to be out there. Same thing, same advice we give for pedestrians and bicyclists, and kind of in the city. Just be aware of motorcycles that they're out there now.
I think once in my life I saw some really crazy motorcycle action on the expressway, and I think that sometimes you can think like, oh, the motorcyclist is doing these dangerous things on the road. But honestly, the majority of the time when I see a motorcyclist, they are being pretty careful. And I think that they try to keep their distance from you. And so then I try to give them extra distance. Is that like a good tip to just like, give them more distance than you'd give a car?
Yeah, I mean, our general tip is to give everybody a lot of distance, more than you think. The idea of tailgating somebody is obviously we all kind of know what tailgating is when you're right up on somebody, but the general rule is that you should give 3 seconds of space between a vehicle and the vehicle in front of you. And so maybe you want to provide 4 or 5 seconds between you and a motorcyclist, again, because they can stop much faster than a car. So they might end up stopping much faster than what you might expect. But in general, yes, give 3 to 5 seconds of anybody that you're behind. Um, Please don't tailgate. Use your turn signals so people
Well,
know what
that's what
you're.
I just wanted to mention because that's like a big pet peeve of mine. I'll be driving, someone driving in front of me will be driving extra cautious, slower than the speed limit. And then they don't use their turn signal at any turn. And I was like, honestly, it almost feels more dangerous that I don't know that you're turning than you driving slow. You know what I mean? Like there's this, you're not helping me by not telling me where you're going.
Yes. I always thought that, maybe if you're going to build in an automatic feature for cars, it's that you cannot turn if you don't have a turn signal on. So you just have to, right? But yeah, it's a big deal. Use your signals. Motorcyclists use your signals and other signals. If you use a hand signal, motorcyclists are harder to spot and harder to see. So anything you can do as a motorcycle rider to make yourself more visible and your intentions more visible is going to be helpful. Wear brighter clothes. I know black leather jackets are popular amongst motorcycle riders. Wear something bright, wear a bright helmet, something that just helps people see you. And likewise, join a motorcycle club. There's a lot of great motorcycle clubs out there that help teach safety and awareness, help you learn best practices for riding a motorcycle. Understand that you are embarking on a very dangerous activity, and so the safer you can be, the better off you'll be, and for you and for everybody else.
From someone that's seen, a lot of crashes and stuff, is it important to make sure that you're constantly having your motorcycle in tip-top shape maintenance-wise? Because I'm sure that there can be accidents caused by, maybe your tires aren't fully inflated or things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that applies again for cars and motorcycles. I take my car in every season, every spring and every fall, right? Make sure my car is ready for the winter, please. Check your tires for traction, check your brakes, check your windshield wipers. Make sure that you have a helmet that you can see well out of. A big part of motorcycles crashes and being distracted is sunlight or wind in their face, right? Not wearing a helmet. So if you're not going to wear a helmet, make sure that you're wearing glasses that are going to protect your face from the wind or goggles. If you have a helmet, make sure that it's one that's going to be able to, block sunlight as far as, blinding you when you're driving into the sun. And yes, as motorcyclists, make sure your motorcycle is in tip-top shape as soon as you get it out of the garage and ready for the season. Um, it's always best just to do it every single season. And for cars, you should do it at least twice a year.
Yeah, I mean, especially when I think about, I would never get on a motorcycle. I'm terrified of them. But even if you just get on your bike, if your bike's in the garage all winter, and then you get on your bike, it's usually got some problems. You usually got to do stuff to it. So I'm assuming a motorcycle's similar to that, where you got to fix it up a little bit when you want to take it out of hibernation.
Well, exactly. You want to take your bike out with like pumping up your tires and
Yeah.
it works. You're just pedaling that thing. So imagine something that can go 80, 90, 100 miles an hour in the blink of an eye. I'd want to make sure that, it can stop as well and avoid a collision if it has to.
Well, we're talking about driving in the warm months. You're saying obviously there's a bigger issue in the warm months with people getting in accidents and stuff. And from Memorial to Labor Day are considered the 100 deadliest days of summer. This is a pretty scary thought to think about that when people are driving, they're more likely to get in an accident during this time. What does this mean regarding these specific dates, statistics, and how we can protect and prevent accidents from happening?
Yeah, like we said earlier, summertime driving is very dangerous driving. It's a dangerous time to be out there because there's a lot of people out there and they're driving more aggressively. You're probably excited to get somewhere. Um, the 100 deadliest days of summer is a scary moniker, but it's good because it brings attention and it makes you aware that from Memorial Day to Labor Day, you need to be extra cautious on the roads, right? I think something like 30 to 40% of all fatal teen crashes happen during that time period, which is astonishing. You have a lot of young new drivers on the road. You have a lot of kids driving with each other to activities without their parents, right? So headed to the beach or headed to a concert. So there's a lot of younger drivers on the road. And there's just a lot faster driving. So, it's a scary time to be out there. And so this is the time to be extra diligent about not driving distracted, driving slowly and reasonably. You're going to get there. If you think about driving, 75 rather than 70, it saves you 5 miles over the period of an hour. That's not very much, right? So when you really think about that, people that are in a rush to get somewhere, slow down. You're really not losing that much time over the long haul of a trip.
Honestly,
Um,
if they run into something, I mean, like if they run into traffic, eventually, if they pass you, sometimes you run into them even. They're flying down the road and then you end up running into them later. Like you're like, I just saw you going way over the speed limit.
that's my favorite. That's my favorite. Like catching up to somebody who was speeding and then they just get stuck at the same light that you're at.
Yeah.
You're like, well, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Um, and then they run off again. But especially for teen drivers, they're not experienced. Maybe they're used to driving for 1 or 2 seasons in these roads, so they don't understand or appreciate how dangerous these vehicles are. I was out for a run in my neighborhood the other day, and there's this high schooler just flying through the city, and I'm like that old guy, like yelling at kids, like to slow down now. But it's like just really start to see these kids, drive aggressively because they don't appreciate the responsibility of, what they're doing. So just understand, and it's not to pick on kids, but just understand that the lack of experience is going to attribute to, more aggressive or faster driving. So you need to be extra careful knowing that those drivers are out there.
Well, and another thing in the summer, you have more families getting outside. They're riding their bikes, they're walking. And when an individual is hit by a car when they're doing these activities, I'm not sure how many people realize how auto laws can help them even when they are not in the car. Is this an area where your team can help people? And what should someone do if they're, hit by a car while they're the pedestrian or the cyclist?
Well, that's why I'm so thankful that you're having us here. Honestly, just from a public service benefit, I've always wanted to give like a 101 class for people for Michigan no fault law because people just don't know what it means. So we have Michigan no fault law. Well, so what? But what it means is that if you are in an accident, you are going to be covered most of the time, whether you're in your own vehicle, you're in somebody else's vehicle, whether you're a pedestrian or you're riding your bicycle. You're going to be covered by either your own auto insurance or somebody who you live with. And that's a great thing, but people just don't know that. It also
Hmm.
doesn't matter if you're at fault, and that's kind of the no fault part of it. So, yes, you could be a pedestrian that jaywalks and you get hit by a car. Guess who's going to pay your medical bills? Not the car that hit you. It's going to be your own auto insurance or your parents. You can apply to the assigned claims plan, which helps people who don't have insurance. But a lot of the stuff just people just don't know. And so they think like, gosh, how am I going to go to the doctor? I can't afford these medical bills, right? How can I miss work? I can't afford to be out of work. All that comes through Michigan's no fault system. And most of the time it goes through your own insurance. The best thing to do, honestly, and this is not a sales pitch, is to call us, call a Michigan auto attorney so that you can just be walked through it. Again, it doesn't mean that you're going to hire anybody. It doesn't mean that you're going to sue anybody. It just means that you need to be educated on what you're entitled to. Pedestrians and bicyclists, again, guess what? They're going to be out there now. And, people running and biking everywhere, and things are going to happen. And so understanding what your rights are, including who's going to pay for your medical bills, who's going to pay for you to be out of work, is really, really important. And just a lot of people don't understand their way through navigating that process or even what they're entitled to. So a lot of people, unfortunately, don't do anything. And they just, end up with the bills or they miss work or they lose their job and they just don't know what they're entitled to.
Yeah, and in a place like Ann Arbor, you're sharing the road with a lot of cyclists. We have miles and miles of bike lanes, and it can go both ways. Either people are using the bike lane properly, or they're, which is also something I like to mention, is that they're using the bike lane the wrong way, where they're head on at you instead of their back of their bike. But I think like more and more cities in Michigan are getting bike lanes. And I think it's really important to know how to share the road with someone in a bike lane because not all of the bike lanes are protected where there's going to actually be a physical median between you and the bike.
Yes, you mentioned two things there actually. So number one, really easy rule for people. When you're riding a bicycle, you're riding with traffic. When you are a pedestrian, you are walking against traffic. So bike, the right way is the right side. Pedestrian, the right way is the left side. So just that's absolutely right. Don't go the wrong way. Number one. Number two, bicyclists need to be afforded space on the road. They are just as entitled to that space as a car is. And Michigan law says you have to give bicyclists at least 3 feet of room as you pass them. It is terrifying. I know a lot of, bicyclists and triathletes, and it's terrifying to be on the road, training and out there and enjoying themselves because people don't understand that you have to give them space. And I know drivers get impatient and mad at bicyclists, but just take your time, wait for the appropriate time to pass them. And again, just like motorcyclists, bicyclists, please, please, please wear a helmet. Please. It just saves so many lives and injuries. Um, but yeah, we're going to see them out there and just understand that it's not everybody's going to be easy to spot. And, unexpected things are going to happen. And until cars can drive themselves and completely guarantee us that we're not going to have any accidents, you have to be responsible and careful.
Well, obviously, summer's a time when a lot of us go on road trips. So, if you get in an accident while you're out of state, how does that affect your insurance or how you do a claim?
So good news is that your insurance goes with you. So if you're in an accident out of state, you're going to be entitled to Michigan no fault benefits, which is great. Now, if you end up having a lawsuit because somebody wrongfully hit you, and so you can sue them in that state for pain and suffering, your insurance might ask for reimbursement from that lawsuit for what they paid out, which they cannot do in Michigan. But for an out-of-state crash, they could do. Don't worry about that though. Just understand that if you are traveling, your insurance goes with you. So if you are injured in another state, obviously you want to talk to an attorney, possibly for a claim in that state, but also contact your insurance company. Most likely still going to pay your medical bills. They're still going to pay your wages.
Well, we're just about out of time. Is there anything else, tips that you would like to give anyone, all encompassing about driving during the warm months?
We're a broken record, but don't drive distracted. Wear your seatbelt. Be careful. It's your parents, it's Snoopy's teacher, Peanut's teacher, blah, 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 blah. The point is, be careful. No speeding, no drowsy driving, certainly no drinking and driving. I think that goes beyond saying at this point in our society. Wear your seatbelts, obey your traffic laws, don't tailgate, don't follow too closely, drive defensively. Most importantly, the number one issue we see in the state, which we're huge advocates for fighting, is distracted driving. Put your phone down. There is nothing as important as driving. There's no text message, there's no email, there's no Instagram story, there's no TikTok video that is as important as driving. So it all can wait. And the exciting part is when you get to your destination, look at all the fun stuff you get to look at. So just put your phone down, don't drive distracted, and just be careful out there. And understand you're not just driving for yourself, you're driving for everybody else around you. Be careful. Nobody wants to hear about you being in an accident, but also the families of those drivers around you don't want to hear about their loved ones in an accident either. So just be careful. Let's take care of each other and take care of ourselves this summer and just enjoy ourselves, but be careful.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned about being careful and being aware of other people because you know what? If you got murdered in an accident, your life's over. But if you murdered someone in an accident, that pretty much ruins your life too. That's going to be something that you have to hold on to forever, and no one wants to have that feeling either. And I think it's important to talk about all this stuff because I think we've all seen crashes on the side of the road, and we don't want to be a part of them, regardless of how frustrating being stuck in traffic or work zones can be. It's better to just be slow and steady, and you don't need to win the race. You'll get there.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Just be patient, understand that it's a big responsibility. It's a privilege to be able to drive. It's not a right. And so, just practice self-care and respect for others and, do the safe thing as you're out there.
Well, thank you, Brandon, so much. I definitely learned a lot talking to you today, and I think it is important to, be in contact with people like you when you do get in an accident so you know what to do because there's a lot of confusion out there.
Well, we appreciate having an opportunity to spend time with you. We love your show.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching and tune in next time to FYI.